Well, basically, it comes down to, doesn't it? It comes down to what you control. And so if you've got money in the bank is acting as trustee and exercising control over funds. So it's a
Yep.
trust, it's part of a trust relationship. And this is what people
Yep.
don't know.
Don't
People don't
understand.
know that when you put your funds in the hands of a banker, trustee, that they're inquiring where the funds under their control as trustee are being moved to, or why you want the 5 grand, why you want this, or what this is, what that is.
Mm-mm-mm. All these questions, right? And I think as they're cracking down more and more on the cash economy, they're even now cracking down on crypto, and banks are like trying to control how much can go across to the wallets and stuff.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, well, this is where through the PMA you can become your own bank, right?
Yeah, well, you appoint a trustee, right? So you knock out the bank's trustee, and then you got to ask yourself, well, why would I leave funds in the hand of a trustee who doesn't have my ultimate interest? So what you do is revoke their power of attorney, and you say I'm the beneficiary of a trust. That
Mm,
fixes that. See how that fixes it? And now
mm.
whatever they got to do, it's like the super fund, right? If you were to do it for a super fund, which a lot of people are more
I
frequent,
can't.
more comfortable with understanding, right? So everyone's got a super fund, right? Like, let's just assume everyone has super. So what they try to do is hide what they're doing. They try to not be on the level with all the admin fees. So if you look at it, and this is what they're encouraging people to do, is look at the super fund manager, query all of these charges and costs, and then go, why are you charging so much? And I'm not seeing an increase. Or am I seeing an increase, but it's all absorbed in fees? So these admin fees are really trustee fees.
Mm,
There's a breach in the general rule of equity. A trustee breaches his fiduciary role as trustee if he doesn't create an increase. Because what's his main job as a trustee? To create increase. So if you're
mm.
not seeing an increase, you've got a delinquent trustee or a breach of trust. So now move that over to banking, right?
Mm.
And it's the same scenario. It's always the same scenario. The banker trustee is supposed to manage your funds, and this is what they're doing. They're asking you what you need this money for. Why is this going here? We don't accept that, and they're exercising trustee role. So it's very obvious. They're coming out of the woodwork a bit to reveal their handiwork by
Yeah.
by pushing, by controlling the situation, the
Yeah.
the funds, managing the funds.
So I guess the biggest question a lot of people have is like when they're asking for the KYC, do we give it?
Yeah, well, they already have your KYC, right?
Hmm.
They already have your account number. So when they open up an account number, think of that as a direct access to your trust.
Mm.
And so anti-money laundering, they'll request, and they say during KYC or especially AMLs, you must tell us if you've got a trust or alternative funds or any other funds of large quantity, right? So if you've got, say, 230 million in a trust fund, they say that, oh, you've got to let us know. You've got to tell us, right? And
But they don't know. We don't know. And we don't tell them. So
yeah,
do they know? Do they know that there's the trust there with
they
231 million or
they they definitely know because when you apply for a mortgage, they go to that trust account, the Treasury Direct account, and they log in and verify after verification. They take your mortgage note to the Treasury window,
to get the
right?
fund?
The secret window.
Mm,
They
mm,
never
mm,
told you where your money, your wealth, or mortgage is coming from. And
mm.
they swap your note for the money on account or
Currency.
the privilege to print. And then they go onto their window and go, $1 million. Is it, so, 6 zeros? And then you can put the question onto them. You can say, oh, do you have to follow the same guidelines as the AML by disclosing
So
where
you ask them to
where
disclose.
the funds.
Checkmate.
So
I guess
they're
the biggest
breaching.
thing, like at the ground level, we're saying is with the banks. the crackdown on the cash economy and the banks now asking for digital ID or KYC or biometrics, let's scan your face, like everyone's sort of up in arms.
Mm.
And I guess from my perspective, I'm just like, well, I know what my ID is. So that doesn't bother me because it's the verification of the attachment to my estate,
It's what
right?
they do. It's what they're doing with it in the background that they're not disclosing to you. They're not
Sure.
disclosing that your mortgage agreement has a secret power of attorney, and
That
then
your credit card or that your bank account or that any other financial agreement with an
yeah,
institution.
yeah, and through this power of attorney, they can push you around regarding your funds because they act as trustee, and they shift the obligation to pay fines and have forfeiture. But as soon as it suits them, they switch back to their control as trustee. So it's like this bipolar relationship of you're trustee, no, I'm trustee. You're trustee, I'm no trustee.
Mm,
We see this more with rates notice, right? So when we've had a few clients come to us and they've said, "Hey, I've queried the rates and I haven't paid the rates," and then the council added it to my ANZ mortgage or Westpac mortgage, and so now it's built in. The obligation is still on me. That's what they believe, but it's shifted to the bank.
mm,
Now, think about it. This makes sense if the one retaining the title to your mortgage until you pay it out down, which is the bank.
mm,
So the bank exercising proprietary rights with title in hand is deemed the owner. So the council says the owner must pay, and then they transfer to the bank for payment. So what are they saying? They're
mm.
saying the bank with the legal title is the owner.
Control. Mm. Yeah, and this is how they can do the same thing with like garnishment notices,
Because they're
right?
the trustee
As their
relationship.
trustee
Mm.
relationship with the bank.
So what they're saying in that situation is, oh, as trustee, we're gonna pay pay to the ATO this garnish order. We're gonna pay whatever debt for on your behalf because we're trustee, and that is our technical job. So they're saying, hey, but you've got to pay it. You're the one with liability. But what they're really saying is the trust
Has the
is
liability.
has a liability, and the trustee must pay it. So
Mm,
the bank is doing its job, but we're just misunderstanding what our role is.
mm,
So our role as sole beneficiary is just to, yeah, not take on liability as a trustee because hey, we're not that person through the
mm.
role playing.
Created for the benefit, right?
Well, we're not. If they're taking on these roles, then why are we trying to take on the same role?
Yeah. So is there really like there's a lot of fear out there when it comes to banking, and I think that's just absence of knowledge. And when people, it's just easy to divert to the fear. People think they do something wrong or that they have to fight back or they have to find a loophole. And
Mm.
out of all of the experience that we've had, it's like there is no loophole. There's just non-disclosure. When you know who you are, you
Mm.
don't fear any of this stuff and you just operate normally.
Yeah. Well, some people have, got they've the the government has kept the company open and levied it with charges, and then set right to the customer or the so-called owner of the company, the director, and says, "Oh, you've got all this debt. You got it. It's unpaid. It's unpaid. You have a debt." And what they're really saying is, you, the trust, has a debt, and they're giving a statement to the beneficiary.
Mm,
Really, the beneficiary should be going, well, if there's an obligation, then pay it because you're the director trustee, right? So, a straw person can't be a director because it can't direct.
mm.
A straw person is just the trust,
The
right?
trust. It's the
You're
vehicle.
if you're the beneficiary, the living beneficiary, and
Mm,
the banker or the council or the government is the living trustee,
mm,
then they're charging the trust, and the reason they can hear these or do this ex parte without you saying or doing it or participating is because they're not looking for the trust to speak, talk, or do anything.
Mm.
They're just making statements and giving statements to the beneficiary, which is, this is part of the audit, the accounting, the log, the
Mm.
caseworker files.
You have
We're just
to.
telling you because they have one obligation. Here it is. They have one obligation. Ready?
Yeah.
They just have to maintain the trust in good order and show the expenses and accounting like a fund, super fund,
Mm.
and give statements to the beneficiaries of the fund.
Mm. Mm.
We're all thinking that, oh shit, I'm that name. I got to pay. I have the liability. That is your own head.
Programming.
That is your own
That's the
program.
programming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And this
And
is
what?
generations of believing that
Yeah.
you are the debtor, you owe.
They do put that word in there. You owe a debt, and that's probably the most deceitful way
Uh-huh.
it's done by design, right? You owe a debt.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, how can you tell a car what to do? It's like, car, drive me home. The
Vehicle. Mm.
car must need an operator.
Well, I mean, Teslas these days, I don't know if they're getting
Yeah.
pretty. But I guess I just want to bring it back to like very simple layman basic, like when it comes to banking, is there anything to fear?
Well, not if you know your role, because if you're the sole beneficiary, just remember at the baseline, the core takeaway from this is that a beneficiary can't be liable for any debts
Mm.
because they're only there to benefit. They're there to sit down, shut up, and get paid, get their bills paid, get their food paid, get the shopping paid. They're really not supposed to do anything as a minor, as a child, because this started as
Beneficiaries aren't conducting business.
no. The trustee is tasked with managing the financial affairs for and on behalf of the beneficiary. But the banks know that we don't know this.
Mm.
It's all part of the straw man delusion, etc. But I'll give you an example, right? You you're at work. You go, oh, I want to knock off early. I'm just gonna dial in my Tesla or my EV to pick me up, and it drives from the car park. It comes up to your work door. You jump in. You go, okay, right, Tesla, take me home. It's driving you home. It's running through a 60 that's now moved to a 50. You get pulled over. You're sitting in the back seat, and the police is like, well, you're liable for this ticket. Who am I going to charge for the ticket? And you go, hey, I'm definitely not driving. You can't claim I'm the operator. I'm not really participating in the back seat. I'm just here receiving a benefit of the travel, right? You're going to have to contact Elon Musk. He's the CEO of this trust relationship that I
Ah,
entered into by sitting in the back seat,
yeah.
accepting the ride.
So who's the CEO of the Department of Transport?
Oh, yeah. So
Really?
there,
Is it that simple though?
it's actually more simple than that.
Yeah.
When you break it down, it's so simple. People will just go, hang on, it can't be that simple. Elon Musk is responsible for the Tesla. The Attorney General is responsible for the cargo or the passenger, right? Neither the car, Tesla, I'm saying the car, or the passenger can be held responsible for anything because they're not a trustee slash operator. They're not a manufacturer creating a statement of anything, right? So they're not the settler and they're not sitting in the passenger seat. So they're not a beneficiary. And there's only one passenger. So there's a sole beneficiary. And the Attorney General granted access to the road. So he's the grantor. They established in secret this trust relationship. So you entered into that vehicle trusting that it would get you home safe. So the police are saying, well, your safety is my responsibility. And you go, cool. Well, as a passenger, you can't expect me to perform, act, participate, or do anything. Can you, officer? Now he's stuck. Now, when he's stuck, Tesla's stuck, Elon's stuck, Attorney General's stuck, and you're just the beneficiary. You say, well, as long as you four trustees, grantors, settlers don't injure me or bring cause me harm
mm,
through your actions, I don't I don't have a problem. I don't have to file a tort claim. We're not going to end up in equity court.
mm,
That's see how basic that is? It's
mm.
so
I
basic.
think where people get stuck is like that the act, right? Because if you are behind the vehicle and you are speeding and
Mm.
you're breaking the law, right?
Well, let's take
Mm,
that to the stupid level, right?
mm,
So if you're going through Hungry Jack's and you're ordering a meal, right, you can get fined and lose points in the socialist system
mm,
for paying with your phone because you're on your device. So if you're, and for those cars that still have keys, if you're parked, if you just come out of the pub and you just sit in your car and go, oh, I'm just going to call an Uber, I'm going to sit here in my car in the driver's seat with the keys in the ignition, call an Uber home, or wait for Fred to pick me up, you're deemed to still be driving, right? And I had a magistrate once tell me that she said, Jason, do you realize by just sitting in the passenger seat, you're considered a driver? So they will make these rules and twist
as they
and
go along. It's like they're making the rules up as they go just to raise revenue.
well, under trust law, it's called construe. So they'll construe you to be driver, operator, trustee, operator, driver, trustee, right? Manager, director, trustee, right? A deliverer, defendant, trustee. So I'm saying trustee a lot repetitively on
Mm,
purpose because all these straw persons that they invent, it's really trustee in court. Oh, you're the defendant today, trustee in court. Oh, hello, what's your name? Trustor. Trustor is giving away your power, giving away your rights, giving access to your trust. So the ATO is going, what's your name? Oh, as trustor, I give away everything. I give you use of my name so you can access my trust and discharge and gain the benefit, gain the admin fee.
mm,
All they need is you as trustor to give the name, the
mm,
access.
mm.
That's it. If you apply this relationship to everything in every financial
Mm.
predicament in your
Well, I
life,
guess we sort of segued there a little bit to traveling and motor vehicles. I mean, I don't like to really go down that path. I think that's a different thing. Like, but for the
dangerous.
financial space, right? So we got banking, we got the AML, the KYC. So because we have that trust door relationship when we set up the bank accounts, but we're also the beneficiary. So we have both sides, right? I guess it's if are you which side are you sitting on with that banking and like where do you draw the line of like what do you do? Like do we fight? Like I feel like there's a lot of people that want to fight and push back and I think
That's a light in the deer and headlights. That's the blinding light, right?
yeah, yeah,
That fear or vengeance is going to keep you from just looking at the deepness of this.
yeah.
And so we don't. This is a going to a peace scenario. And so, you can, when we, well, when we restabilize, let's say readjust the relationship with the
Mm,
bank.
yeah.
It's about, staying in honor and remaining honor and going to peace and just saying, look, I'm sorry, I didn't understand the relationship, and how my property was managed.
Mm,
But now that understand how my property is managed, I just need to correct the record to reflect
mm,
that I'm the beneficiary.
mm,
So you just like, you can go exhale, arms down, don't do anything.
mm,
Don't type, don't pick up the phone, don't argue, don't
mm,
try and do adult things by paying all these bills. Just so, well, if I'm the sole beneficiary, there must be a trustee somewhere.
mm,
Now when they contact you, government's contacting you, they're trying to tell you, oh, this is how it's going to be, this is how it goes, this is what it's done, this is a complaint or how we handle a complaint or request. And so there's no complaint, there's no requests because beneficiaries don't do
mm,
those things,
yeah.
right? We just remind them that, hey,
Mm,
I haven't got my interest, my beneficial interest today.
mm,
I'm missing a payment. I'm missing a fridge full of food. I'm missing a
mm,
full tank of gas. Isn't it somebody's job? And just, you know, it's odd. The irony is that, law, we're all trying to take on responsibility and be better and state remain in honor. But in this
mm,
instance, it's That's
It's kind
almost
of counterintuitive, isn't
it's
it?
almost it's almost too smart, too clever, you know? You're working out that it's an advanced system of trust and equity law, but your role in it is to participate less and allow the bankers to pay the bills.
Yeah,
So here's the takeaway today. You know, if you've got a rates notice, you can reply to the council and say, look, I just need to correct the record. I'm sole trustee in this relationship, and the bank,
I'm sole beneficiary.
sole beneficiary in this relationship, and the bank is exercising trustee rights as proprietary rights. They're holding the title. Even when I pay the mortgage after 30 years, they won't give me the title.
Mhm. Yeah.
They're destroying the paper titles. There's actually no way I can confirm that I'm a trustee or owner, even if I wanted to. All of that position and role is taken away from me.
Mm.
So I don't know why I'm getting this statement. It should be directed to the bank. Oh,
Mm.
hang on, is that why you're adding the rates to the mortgage? Because the banker is liable as trustee. Hey, it's the same bank that's asking you where the funds are going. It's the same bank that wants to control everything. So don't fight him for that control, because
Let them have it.
control means trustee, right? If you're saying, no, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that,
You're the trustee.
I'm going to take 10,000 and I'm going to pay bills. Oh, okay, trustee. If you're so bold to act as trustee, you're going to take on all the liability. And the banks and the councils and the lawyers are laughing at you for taking on a role.
Oh, I just had a beautiful. So one of the things I said in one of the master classes recently was in, about the director's ID and how, a lot of accountants and solicitors put people into corporate businesses like companies because of limited liability,
Mm.
and then they bring out the director's ID and all of these people are being made personally liable for the
Shifting.
company because they're in the director. And I'm like, that's a huge lie. You don't
Mm.
have limited liability. And I think the reason this was run so hard was because if people realize that limited liability actually belongs as the sole beneficiary of
Mm.
your own estate, your straw man, the legal
That's,
persons,
Mhm.
people would just put everything in their own name
Yeah.
rather than trying to create these companies and create limited liability. It's got them further into liability. So we
Mm.
actually have to unwind that, go to the original jurisdiction and sit in our true role where
Yeah.
we have no liability.
Yeah, that's right. They're saying, oh, you got limited liability, but when somebody's talking about liability, it's usually they're giving you all the liability.
All of it. Yeah.
It's you
What a joke.
it's limited as trustee. But
Ah,
what they're doing is they're saying, Abby, you're going to get the liability. I'm shifting it onto you, and I'm going to release myself as trustee of that burden
yeah.
of
What
being
a joke.
liable for your debts. And hey, it sounds like they're just about to do a reset because they're shifting
Yep.
the burden off them.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's interesting. And I just see like as more and more people, they've got so much interest. There's so many people that are in financial pressure, financial strain. They're struggling to put food on the table. They're struggling to just make ends meet. And like the pressure cooker is
Mm.
getting like pressure. People
Yeah.
are feeling it. And I
Mm.
think one of the biggest things that most people have been too afraid to look at,
Mm.
people are now looking at and going, well, hang on a minute. All of these government fees and charges, levies and licenses, fines and penalties, like the amount of tax we're paying, fines we're paying, fees we're paying that's going to this government who's then spending on it on $14 million blobs of artwork that
Mm.
look like a swirl of poo. Like everyone's going, what the fuck, man? Like,
Yeah.
what the actual, there's
Mm.
no additional benefits. Schools are underfunded. Like we're not benefiting as the beneficiaries, as the citizens of Australia and the sole beneficiary of the original jurisdiction, we are not benefiting.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, and
And
so
I think,
There's so many talk. Everyone has a tort claim. Everyone has an
Everyone has a tort claim. Everyone?
everyone
Everyone?
because
Everyone.
yeah, yeah.
Really? So tell me about this. Like,
I'll give you an
is the tort
example.
claim on the basis of non-disclosure, like full, like the full information around this
Okay.
wasn't disclosed to
I'll
us?
give I'll give you an example. Tort claim is based on fairness. It's the most fair jurisdiction. And if you ever go in as a victim or beneficiary to claim compensation, the judge immediately works for you. He immediately must protect your interest because he himself is a trustee. And if anybody's going to identify with their role accordingly, it is the judge.
Yeah.
In federal court, equitable court, or family circuit, which is code for federal. Code for federal is international. So they're bound by the international rules generally of equity since Australia was placed into Equitable's position as trusteeship under the trusteeship program of the UN 72. Okay, put that to aside. The rules of equity prevail in Australia, regardless of legislation or what any common law, constitution sets up a trust in itself. There you go, equity again. So, for example, ATO sends a letter, say, "Oh, we're auditing you." And if you don't, comply, it'll be a criminal offence or however they word it, and you may go to prison or safe. Or the moment they threaten you or put this kind of pressure on a beneficiary, they cause suffering, harm,
Yes.
not technically loss yet, but cause suffering and emotional harm and spiritual harm and embarrassment.
Uh-huh.
If you say it's if you start to talk about the legislative part, you're expected to know all of it, so don't go there. Equity prevails over legislation. So the lawyers will trick you and go, well, under this act, we have a right to collect blah, blah, blah.
Mm.
And just don't, you have to dismiss that.
The lawyers, that's how the lawyers keep
Yeah.
people trapped in the game. So it's like the legislation's the game, and if
Hmm.
you're quoting the legislation, you're playing the game.
To trick you away from equity.
Yeah.
So if the lawyers are talking about legislation, you got to say, look, um, legislation can't protect you from injuring my estate in equity. Right?
Mm.
And all you need is these one-liners, these paragraphs, these sentences to shut down the whole bar system. And they'll be like, oh my God, they know. They know the secret that they're actually the beneficiary of our actions and we can't cause injury. Now, what's the injury here? Embarrassment,
Mhm.
right? So threats of menace and demands in the ATO, when they're telling you, you can take you to court, you may go to prison, these threats cause emotional harm.
Mm.
Now, if you take that to the court of equity, right, there's your claim.
Mm.
No
Mm-hmm.
lawyer, no bar member, no one in Australia, no one in the world can get out of that penalty, right? It's just whether he's that trustee, that ATO agent, for example, was going to prison for 2 years or 12 years.
Mm.
That's, I can't say, right? But there is a length. There is a standard length for intimidating a beneficiary, right? Who has no financial control, right? We're expected, because we're doing business, that the ATO is operating a client-based service for our
Mm-hmm.
businesses.
Mm-hmm.
But that's legislative, that's statutory.
Mm.
What?
Yeah, because even I see people in the PAYG campaign struggling to comprehend the step out of employment
Hmm,
because the employment is legislative,
hmm,
right? So when you come out of this legislative and we
hmm.
move into the rules of equity and receiving for labor, it's different.
Equity is where beneficiaries win. Statutory is where all trustees win. That's why the bar, the banks, the Centrelink, the managers, the CEOs of all of these enterprises, they just go, oh, thank you. We're looking into your request or a complaint. Now, you're always going to get back, even if you don't make a complaint or request, right? If you direct them to discharge and then they write back and go, we're looking into your request. If you allow it to stop there at request or complaint, what you're allowing is under their legislation, right? It's legislated. They've got an act that says how you handle complaints,
Hmm.
legislative or statutorily. So they brought you into a
Okay.
negotiation in statutory. So you went into your role and then you're back into statutory. And now you are negotiating the complaint. And then because they've got general powers of attorney, they decide how the complaint is going to be handled.
But you don't want it to be handled by them because they're going to rule in their own favor.
You need to go into an equity court and have the judge decide based on fairness for the beneficiary.
And this is where public ethics come into it as well. And
Yeah, well, the judge will be looking, he'll be going, well, you intimidated this beneficiary, you said all these things, you embarrassed them publicly, you said they'd go to prison, you threatened them with demands by menace. I'm looking at all this. But in this court, right, I'm only got one job, which is to pay the right amount of compensation for their harm.
mm,
They're saying their harm is emotional.
mm,
And the ATO go, but what about the unpaid tax? What about this? What about our admin fee for administrating their business?
mm,
And the judge will go, well, to the beneficiary, well, did you take on any kind of responsibilities or agree to pay the ATO for this client service? And you just go, no, I told them all the time I was the beneficiary. Then what's the judge to do? But look after the interests of the beneficiary.
yeah,
Now, how you word that, how you game this, how you set
yeah.
this up is a service, right? Is a service.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. And I think too, like, um, a lot of people in the struggle with directors, like all these things flying around, director's ID and tax letters and debts and mortgages and interest rate hikes. And like from our perspective, this is the economy doing everything in their power to raise revenue
Stay afloat.
and use the
Yeah.
people to stay afloat
Hmm.
when what we are looking at is a crash. So when people stop paying, when people stop complying, when people stop submitting, because the harm that has come to the
Hmm.
people for so long, like people have
Well,
had enough,
if
right?
you look at it from the government's perspective, let's just pretend that we work in government, right? And we're part of the Senate, whatever, and we can't pay our wages. We can't, do the budget. So we've got to do what the bank does and go to the trust, right, the treasury account, the treasury, and say, hey, I provided a service to Joe, and I need to get paid for the service to Joe. And the treasury goes, yeah, okay, that's all good. Why don't you take it through from admin fees from all your mortgages and all this debt raising, this liability raising that you usually do? Well, no one's coming in to the bank to apply for a mortgage. All that's dropped off because they don't think that they can service the debt in this economy. So
Mm,
people are just not signing notes. They're not
mm,
signing new notes. So they're
mm,
not raising the economy, right? So, for example, the government tries to stimulate the economy by saying, oh, we're going to make it easier for first home owners and we're going to get rid of duty. On average, the government makes 250 grand per mortgage, right? So if people aren't creating, allowing access to their trust by creating a mortgage note and arranging a power of attorney for the banks, where are they going to get their money? And where
mm,
is the government going to get all these taxes to fund government? So they're in self-preservation mode,
mm,
right? And they're trying to raise revenue. So they're putting on the screws to ATO going, by any means possible, right, bend the rules and go garnish
mm,
these trust accounts for
mm,
obligations. So they're raising all these debts, charges, or levies against the trusts. And everybody up there, the trustors, are just like, well, I don't know how to deal with this, right?
mm,
And so they're having to garnish, they're trying to raise, they're trying to go to the Treasury Director and say, hey, I've created a service for my client, and they're probably asking the ATO, go, well, where do they agree to participate? And
mm,
have you added as their accountant, right? So this is why the ATO is the only, raising tax is the way that government preserves itself when there's no money or liquidity in the system.
mm,
It's got to work out. The only governance to me is any service where we can secretly charge the trust accounts of the people, the sovereign accounts. And they have to get us to either go to sleep, not participate, not understand our role, go into conflict, go into administrative negotiation.
I
And if
see a
you,
lot of people in the conflict and in administrative negotiation, and I see sometimes that is a stepping stone to understanding your role. It's like sometimes you have to go through that fight because you've been oppressed for so long, and when you do wake up and learn, you get angry, but then you
Mm,
need to balance it out because there is no fight. There's just
mm.
knowing.
Well, look at the way super trustees justify fees. Look at the way ATO
Yeah.
justifies its fees or levies or charges, right? It must show you an event and a log of the correspondence they have with you. They show everything like an audit, right?
Yeah. And this was even the other thing, Jace, like when they were going to do the Commonwealth Games in Victoria, and the Victorian government lost like $5 million in
Mm,
fees to
mm,
the council for
mm,
the Commonwealth Game. And this is just a fee.
mm,
And, the Victorian people were pissed about that because that come out of taxpayer money. And they're
mm.
like, well, yeah, who's sitting on the board of this Commonwealth Association that's going to do this sporting event? And if the event is cancelled, why are they charging a $5 million fee? Who's getting that fee? I just saw that as a political decision to swipe money out of Victoria.
Well, let's go real deep for maybe 10 seconds, right? And I don't know if anyone will follow this,
But
but
I will. I would. Let's go.
if somebody takes on the position as trustee, like as ATO or super fund, and they don't give the beneficiary a return an increase on investment or an increase, right? But they only pay themselves. Like the ATO says, oh, these are the levies or charges I'm gonna fine or charge the trust. And then you as a beneficiary going, okay, so I'm expecting a return, some money here, an increase in my bank account. Now, if you don't get an increase under trust law, right, that's a breach of trust because a trustee can only benefit a beneficiary in their financial dealings, right? So the ATO, when they act as your accountant, they're supposed to go get all the losses and return it to you. That's what a tax debt return is supposed to be. So if you receive no check from the ATO employee, there's no increase and you haven't benefited.
So we're all sitting in massive losses.
That's why all these open accounts and closed account. No, there's no such thing as a closed account,
Ah,
right? They're still charging fees
out
on,
of those
yep.
accounts.
Now,
Oh,
this is what happened when Elon Musk, right, acted as a trustee and went into audit Doge with the team Doge, all of the Social Security. They found apparent closed accounts, people that had been dead for 30, 40 years and were apparently 120, 130 years old. They were still getting checks in a service. So they would get like $250 a week, and the administrators, right, would receive like 4 grand. So they would take 4 grand and give you $200. So 4 grand for admin fee on an open account
for someone that's
in
dead.
Social Security regarding whether you're dead or alive, because remember, this is a trust. It's not about you, right? The beneficiary's gone and dead 30 years ago, but the account always remains open. There's no such thing as a closed
The
account.
Doge has learned this. So we're just segue
And they
here.
did tell,
What's your take on this whole like Trump and Musk
well,
fiasco?
they've gone deep, like we just did a deep dive, and they're not telling anyone. What's the outcome? What? So they get, oh, we're going to give everybody 5 grand check. So you're going to pay the beneficiaries 5 grand when they probably owed 5 million. So where's the remainder, Abby?
Yeah. Well, this is
Right?
why I always say currency is infinite. They just keep creating.
Yeah. If somebody that's 90 would probably be owed, 150 million in tax losses or something. Somebody that's 19 might be owed 5 grand.
Mm.
So they've gone to the lowest common denominator and says, we'll cut you a check, we'll get rid of IRS, right?
Cut your
Get
check.
rid of the dodgy trustees, and we'll return you some of your losses, your tax return, your debt return, your loss return.
Wow.
So
But the
what they,
losses are actually a lot more because people don't realize. How fascinating. Well, I guess this goes like, okay, so all the people who are in fear, right? Fear of the tax man, fear of the banks, fear of director's ID, fear of the digital ID, and like what would you say to those people
well,
who don't know who they are?
there's nothing to fear. You
Yeah.
only have your own ghost. If you think that you're the deceased estate or the straw person or your name, you're dealing with a ghost. It's a phantom twin. Biologically, it's actually called phantom twin. So it's a phantom, right? On your driver's license, it's that ghostly image. It's the one that's transparent. It's a ghost. So you're dealing with the phantom, right? So this fear is something that's created in your own mind from a phantom,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
It's like I hear voices in my head. Okay, so who's talking to you?
Mm.
It's your phantom twin from birth that died as the placenta and never matured, never became anyone. And because that phantom wasn't embodied, it's trying to, haunt you and say, hey, we've got to do this, we've got to fear this, fear that. They're naturally in fear of no life because they don't exist and they're a phantom. So you're your own worst enemy, or your voice is the one talking to you is the one in fear because it's never been embodied in a body, right? So as the living, right, don't listen to the fear. It's not you. It's not real.
Yeah, yeah. And I
Ghost.
can attest to that, there's different levels of fear through different learnings for
Mm,
sure. And I think even people right at the beginning, like not even like they know that there's something and they sense it, but it's that fear of giving your ID to the bank. Or setting up a different bank account, or it's the fear of doing something wrong and the fear of non-compliance, the fear of non-submission, the fear of not doing. And I think this is where I even say, like, this is sort of the COVID of commerce, right? And there was like a lot of people that were in fear during COVID of the
mm,
boogeyman COVID. But then there were people that just knew. And now we fast
mm,
forward, 5 years on, and where we've seen, the result of complete shift in people's fear around all of that.
mm.
So
Well,
commerce is the same. Business is exactly the
mm,
same. Like
all the
we're
same
so
game.
afraid to do business and make money that it's like before people even receive the money, they think they've done something wrong. And
Well, do you remember during COVID when everyone was at home and off work and apparently sick and masked up?
yeah,
ScoMo came out and says, "Don't worry, all
we'll
your
look after you.
money and all your bills or debt or your Centrelink or your hotels, all covered. It's all covered. We'll pay for it."
Yeah.
He picked up several portfolios and he acted as trustee and he took on the main role as government head, trustee, as well,
Yeah.
executor in this situation. And he
Yeah.
says, don't worry, children, don't worry, minors, don't worry, beneficiaries.
We'll
We're
look
still
after
going to
you.
do our job and access your trust funds to care for you. It
Yeah.
was a moment of truth.
Yeah. And also, I want to just highlight the fact who actually got that money. Because while we think we got that money to survive, if you
Mm.
look at it, that money came in and people weren't going to the movies and heading down to Dreamworld or, going out for dinner and all that. So, no, people stopped living. We stayed home. So that money was to pay the mortgages, pay the rents, right? So where does your rent go? To the
Where did it come
owner
from,
of the
right?
property. Where does the owner pay their mortgage to? To the bank,
Mm.
right? And then
So
we were buying food. So it was the
where did it all
money,
come
it
from?
came through us, but it
Mm.
went to the major corporations anyway, to the bankers and the,
To the
and
administrators of trusts, to the ministers called Services Australias, and all any like that. You probably have a lot of pop-up institutions, I call them, like Benevolent Society or
yeah,
Anglican Care, that would have made a killing by,
Mm.
taking all this trust fund and administrating services and keeping a large whack of it while we all stay home under curfew, getting a pittance, right? And this is, you got to understand, this is all government does. There's nothing else.
Yeah,
Every
yeah.
relationship, right, is on the same hinge. You've got like 500 doors on one hinge, right, on these trust accounts. And it's, back to the bank for 2 seconds. So when you make a promissory note, they get power of attorney over it, they securitize it and do what they want, and then they create the debt and they have you pay off the debt to your own loan. You loan
Yeah.
them the money, they get the note, they get paid out, and they have you pay it
Pay
back.
yourself back.
And then they keep saying, "Oh, we're gonna discharge the debt, right? We're going to go into Jubilee and discharge the debt. The debt raised is what they owe us."
Yeah, yeah, like the Australian National Debt Clock is what they owe us. It's
Yeah,
how much debt
they
has
took.
been created in our economy. It's not a reflection of how much money we owe. We don't owe anything. They
Yeah.
owe us because we're the asset. They created the currency backed off our asset, our human resource, our energy. It's our energy that keeps this economy going.
The beneficiaries don't owe debt,
Mm, mm.
right? The
Oh.
beneficiary receives a return of what the bank owes us. So if the bank took the mortgage, sold it, and did certain things in security fraud, right? They're basically saying we owe you that $1 million. And
Mm,
so they have to keep the account open because
mm,
it's a debt to
mm,
us. So they
mm,
can't close it off because they can't close out their own debt. That's not what trustees are allowed to do. They've got to keep that account open to pay the beneficiary if and when the beneficiary wakes up and goes, "Oh, hang on, that's a debt you owe me."
mm,
That's how some people are getting all of their debts returned from that
mm,
account. That's actually how it works.
mm, mm. So it's like flipping the script, you know. It's like going from being afraid of it to actually embracing it and flipping it and going, well, this is the real position, this is the real losses, and actually, as a beneficiary, we've been injured. So are you gonna fix that or
Yeah.
how are we gonna sort this out?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a famous tribe, well, not famous, but there's a tribe that they lost in their commercial claim, and then they just basically came back for a second whack and says, "Oh, look, um, earth and land has been moved off our country in this mining deal or whatever it was, and
Yeah.
because we're connected to country, we've lost that connection, and we're suffering emotional and spiritual loss, spiritual harm."
Wow.
And they took it to a court of equity, I guess,
Yeah.
and the judge agreed with them and says, "Yep, I can only agree with the beneficiary if they can prove they're connected to country." But the irony is, all they had to do is call on the council and say, the council themselves say we are connected to country.
Okay. They put their foot in it. They put their
Right.
foot in it.
So
They put their foot in it.
trustees are not lying. They're saying, yeah, you're traditional owners. Yeah,
Mm,
your once were what they're saying is you're traditional owners. You were once owners, and now we're exercising propriety right over that which we care for, your land.
mm,
But
mm,
if we move that land, we do harm or injure beneficiaries. So the claim is real. It's just no one knows how to make the claim.
mm.
Spiritual harm,
Spiritual harm.
embarrassment, distress, right? Go to the non-legislated claim because under legislation you give and negotiate jurisdiction and you grant general powers.
Mm,
But in equity, the only role that you have is beneficiary.
mm.
And the judge will sit there and go, "What can I do for you?" Well,
You is plural.
you can
Who
have
are you?
you can assist me in seeking compensation, right, for my
Mm,
threats, my embarrassment.
mm,
Right. Then he's going to turn to the trustee and go, "What governs the trustee?" Oh, the code of ethics, the code of conduct, which is constructive trust. So
trust relationship.
in equity, he's only looking at the trustee's role as trustees, right?
Mm,
And it says in there that the government ethics act and all those different acts in each state that an employee must form trust. So if they must form trust, what does that mean? They must benefit the beneficiary. And as soon as property comes into play, there's a
Mm,
trust.
mm,
So the council is tasked with looking after the land
mm,
and not causing harm to the traditional owners, right? What they're saying is, oh, in case we get taken to court, we're going to have to exercise proprietary rights and issue title. And by issuing title, you get back to the rates dilemma. They're exercising proprietary rights as title holder and current owner. So they say in this deal, the mob there are traditional owners. They're not current owners. Get it?
right.
So the council says the owner must pay. And it's a statement. And so you should take that, you should write back and say, I've I've accidentally received you've accidentally sent the statement to me. I believe you should have sent it to the bank current owner
Yeah.
with legal title, exercising proprietary rights if you want to go deep into title,
Oh,
right? This is what Cullerton needs to start reviewing for all the farmers.
mm.
Because if he truly wants to help the
Yeah,
farmers,
the farmers. Yeah.
right, and that politician that was supposed to reach out, they need to start reviewing the active roles of everybody and just
Mm,
put it in correction. Correction, Your Honor.
mm,
Here's
mm,
new. I've just come across new information.
mm,
Please update your records to reflect. I'm not the traditional owner. I'm not the current owner. I have no legal title. I'm not the issuer of the title. Collectively, you should go to the bank, the conveyancer, and New South Wales Titles Office because they hold title, they share title, they do conveyancing, and they equally share propriety
mm.
rights as current owner. Me, the mob,
You're the tenant in common.
we're all tenants. We're,
Oh,
right? We're,
yeah, I
we're
think we might wrap
renting.
it up there because, it's been a
Mm,
while and it's heaps of information, but I want to just leave it on that note. And I
mm,
think with these sorts of things, I'm getting a lot of feedback that people are listening, one, two, even three
mm,
times. And I mean, if social media is anything to sort of look at, we can see this information is getting
uh,
out there.
we,
There's so many people that are sharing their points of view and their interpretation and
well, we understand the power of equity and private law, which is equity, right? In case people are going, what's public, what's private? International law is public.
private.
And then in
Yeah.
our public PMAs, which is a state, we immediately set up a trust board for private equity management.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
now you should understand why we do it like this.
Yes.
Because in our articles, and it's very specific, that the trustee in the PMA,
Hmm.
right, can manage, transfer, hold, and deal and manage with any other trust coming under its management.
Yes.
It's like a board of trustees,
Yeah.
empowered and protected by the state.
Yeah.
So there's nothing more powerful than our PMAs and the way it's written because this was
Yeah.
all reverse engineered
Yeah.
by international governments. That's is what we had to research for years, especially out in New Zealand.
Hmm.
And it's all it's Ministry of Transport, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health. Every other
Hmm.
Commonwealth nation has a department of. So you've got to
Hmm.
go to the head of the snake,
Hmm.
see how they're doing it, and then if it's if it's accurate, if it's congruent with international law, then it's a good example of how it's been done.
Yeah. How
Let's
the
just leave
PMAs
it at
operate.
that, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, the PMA space is just blowing up massively. And I guess people who've landed here on the other Untethered podcast, they've come from the untethered space. And we've been we've been doing the PMAs for quite a long time, but I remember when we evolved in bringing in that trust board and the importance around the crown standing for the individual and giving that power and what we've seen through our experience over the last couple of years, and then the asset protection, the property, the banking, all of these things. It's just, a lot of people can't believe these solutions even exist, but I
Yeah.
think it's just good to know that there's people out there leading this with the courage that is now the permission piece for the rest of the people, because I think they've sort of been sitting on the sidelines going, well, does this actually work? Does this even work? And it's like, guys, proof's in the pudding now. We've got the power. Now it's time to walk it.
A PMA is powerless. A PMA has no power unless it races straight into equity as soon as it's created.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Because, you know, we'll finish with this, right? A state needs territory. A state has to manage property. Otherwise, it's got no island, no property, no
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
land, no territory under Montevideo Convention. So as soon as you set up your constitution or arrange your people to be successful state and have sovereignty, and sovereignty is defined as exercising sovereignty over your property. So you set up the state heading into sovereignty over your trust property.
Hmm.
So that's the key takeaway.
Mm,
It's
mm,
state
mm,
and then race in to protect your property.
mm,
Right?
mm.
It created a state before it built anything. It built it.
Checkmate.
Yeah.
Checkmate.
And so, if
Mm.
you don't if you don't get if you're deemed to be a rogue nation or your state fails, your property comes
Or
down.
you're stateless.
Your
There's a
house,
lot of people doing rogue things that are completely stateless.
yeah. Yeah. So, you can under the laws of equity, you can finesse your own trust, but it's going to be an uphill battle, right?
Because you haven't created the separate state.
Well, this is all the governments, all the micronations
Create a state.
around the world,
Mm,
they they see their property, they go for it, and they set up a trust board immediately after they form their social compact, the
mhm,
state, right? And then they talk, then they deal with the property. So it's like one, two, three.
mm.
Yeah.
We make it sound so simple. Thank
Well,
you.
it is simple. It is simple if you follow the program, but
Yeah.
if you try
Yeah.
and, just put all this together in your own
It
time.
is. It's that keep it simple, stupid. And I think people are expecting it to be so complex. And I think the complexity lies in the unraveling of all the things you thought you know, or what you think it has to look like or has to be, and how
Hmm.
you have to play the game. But then when we come back to the rules of equity, trust law,
Yeah.
and simplicity and international law and how you do trade, like life is actually just more
Yeah.
simpler.
Well, we've spent a long time and teamed up to take all these complex scenarios and simplify them. And now we can simplify the process, but
Mm,
it took an immense amount of time and research to get
mm,
to this
mm,
point, didn't it?
mm.
So
Yeah.
that's where it is, yeah. Save time and get going.